Grand Rising, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising.
Peace, y'all. Peace to the chat.
Give us some ones if y'all can hear us, so we make sure our levels are right. Okay, Copper Color Queen says she can hear us, so that's good. That's good. Cool. I am Flying Squirrel, Grand Rising, Copper Color Queen, Grand Rising, Pamela Hall.
Peace to everyone that's rising.
What's the day? Today Friday?
Yes, it is.
This week has gone by way too fast.
Almost a blur.
Man. Yeah, way too fast. I'm not ready for the weekend yet. Grand Rising, David Corey.
Peace.
So you're not ready for the 3-day weekend? Well, most people's 3-day weekend.
I'm like, there's a 3-day weekend?
What? That exists?
That's what I'm saying. I only know because my son's is out of school on Monday.
Well, today is officially the last day of school here.
Wow. Man, oh man.
I don't know, should I be doing backflips? Like, hold on now. Hold up.
He'll backflip into children. They're going to be around.
Like, hold on. We need to renegotiate this.
You sure y'all don't want to keep them for the summer, too?
Y'all know better than that.
Trying to find one of these year-round school areas.
Really?
No, not really.
But really, though, no. Yep, summer break officially starts this evening.
Okay, you got anything planned?
Lock myself away from all these children? No. I know there's some taking them to the National Archives in D.C. because they've been asking for the longest to go see.
Well, that'd be cool.
So I got to look and find out what date we was going that way. There's a couple of places they wanted to see this summer, so we said we're going to take them. Especially if they're into it, so.
Right. Man, at least that way they know how to navigate when it's time for them to keep and make sure their genealogy is updated.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I hope everyone out there is able to do when you're doing your genealogy is, if you're in a position to and you have the space on your hard drive, to download those actual documents. And if you're you have access to a printer or an area that allows you to print out, get that stuff printed out and put it in some form of binder so that you can pass it down. And it'll allow for you to keep those items all in one place. Of course, make copies of it and things of that nature. And, get it notarized. Because that'll be one way to make sure that information gets passed down from generation to generation, and you'll have a physical copy and you can have a digital copy. So, just something to think about. So,
it makes it easier going ahead, making sure ones that come after don't have to go through all this unnecessary digging.
Yeah, because if you think about how frustrated you are now that, for some of us whose parents were not able to do it for whatever reason, if we can go ahead and make it easier for our children, then the only thing they'll have to do is put in their children. And as you know, it's a lot easier to put in information that you know versus information that you do not know. So,
And I'm glad you mentioned children, and since we're talking genealogy, is that also when you're doing your genealogy, don't forget that your parents, your grandparents, your great great grandparents, your great 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 grandparents, all of them had sisters and brothers, and they're just as important on these families tree as well, because it helps you validate and lock in the ancestors that you're looking for. So sometimes when you get jammed up, take the time out and fill out the information of uncles and stuff, great uncles, because that also helps unlock more information about your family. You know, you got to work vertical and horizontal at times.
That's good information. Good information. So we hope everyone's doing well on this Friday Rising. And we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday. As many of you know who were able to watch the show and tune in, yesterday we were finishing up, or beginning to finish up, with the Seneca, and we found out that not only were many of the tribes of the north, or the Haudenosaunee, intermarrying with some of the leadership, the European leadership, either French or some of the English. Many of the tribes, including the Seneca, were actually doing raids on these colonist villages and taking their children hostage and killing the parents, according to the information that's presented. Again, we always want to put out there that this is from the Wikipedia page, so much of it could be wrong. And as soon as we're able to find someone that is tied into the Seneca tribe that has access to the information, we'll be able to confirm it 100%, 30%, or debunk it 100%, 30%, or what have you. We do realize that a lot of this information could be untrue, but also, too, you get out of it what you can, realizing that some of this information is true. So based on the information that we have, we do know that there was a woman by the name of Mary Jameson, who was taken captive by a Seneca, and she ended up marrying two Seneca men. Her first husband died, and then she ended up living with his family, and then she ended up marrying another Seneca Indian, and she had a total of 6 or 7 kids. And then they ended up using her from the standpoint of being able to leverage, by way of relationship, to negotiate a better land deal to help them keep their land a lot better. And I was telling Bones earlier this morning, it kind of messed me up to find out there were different ways that we were allowing the Europeans to be integrated in our family. So not only were the European men tied into our ancestors, but also the European women through slavery and captivity. And of course, good old corn planter and Joseph Brent show their faces again, which constantly reminds us, and it always seems like we're being constantly reminded, that the politicians, the presidents, and many local prominent people, when I say local, I'm talking about local throughout the 48 contiguous states, and also Alaska and Hawaii, they have ties directly to not only tribes, but chiefs. Because, it feels good to be able to tie yourself to a chief if you're Indian, right? Well, it seems like they put themselves in a position, or their ancestors put them into a position, where not only were they tied to chiefs, but their whole family knows that they're tied to chiefs, so there can be no mistaking. And if you are looking to find out if you have any in your family, then you would at least want to tie into a tribe. That way there is no question. And then it would be very difficult, if not impossible, for somebody to tell you who you are. They definitely wouldn't be able to tell you who you're not. So before we get to reading it and finish reading up on these Seneca, is there anything that Bones you want to add or say, or No, Sella, you want to say?
I'm just putting my hard hat in and strapping down, prepared for what we finna dig up.
Man, I'm ready.
All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get to reading. Hope everybody got their hard hats on. So we leave off with the fact that Mary Jameson is giving her accounts of how the British are trying to continue to sway the remaining or the other half of the 5 nations or 6 nations to join them, because you had half of the 6 nations join the American side, even though they were spitting bigoted rhetoric, which basically forced the other half of the Haudenosaunee to join the British. So Mary Jameson and Governor Blacksnake give their account of some of the things that the British were using to gain favor among the Haudenosaunee. And it says Governor Blacksnake's account held many details about luxurious treatment that they received from the British. And in quotes it says, immediately after arrival, the officers came to see us to see what we wanted to support the Indians with provisions and with a flood of rum. And then it says, there are some of the warriors. He said, some of the warriors made use of the intoxicating drink, right? And there were several barrels delivered to us for us to drink, for the white man told us to drink as much as we want. It's as much as we want of it, all free gratis. And the goods, if any of us wish to get for our own use. Contingent to this generosity was the loyalty of the Iroquois to the British. Did y'all hear that?
I know I did.
I'm gonna read that one more time. And I'm reading it in his own words, so that's why it's a little broken up. It says, immediately after arrival, the officers came to see us to see what we wanted for support. So they provided the Indians with provision and a flood of rum. Do you know what it means to flood somebody with something? Grand Rising, Arthur Gray. Do you know what it means to flood somebody with rum or flood somebody with anything?
Some people know what flood the block means.
Thank you. No, so that's a great analogy, a great example. It says, there were several barrels delivered to us to drink, for the white man told us to drink as much as we want, because it was basically says of it all free gratis, and the goods if any of us wish to get for our own use. Contingent to this generosity was loyalty of the Iroquois to the British. Then it goes on to read that the Iroquois debated whether to side with the British or not. An argument to remain neutral until further development came from Governor Blacksnake's uncle, Corn Planter. We know about Corn Planter, right? Because who's Corn Planter's lineage? The Bush family, right? But Joseph Brant twisted his recommendation to wait as a sign of cowardice. Wow. The British noticed that the Indian warriors were divided on the issue, so the British presented them with rum, bells, ostrich feathers, and a covenant belt. It said the British noticed that the Indian warriors were divided on this issue, so the British provided them with rum, bells, ostrich feathers, and a covenant belt. Stop right there. Does anybody know what a covenant belt is?
A covenant belt? Is that like a chastity belt? I don't know. Is
Alright, we gotta go in.
that like a World Wrestling Federation champion belt?
I'm not sure.
All right. Hold up that thing. Yeah.
So I guess we're gonna have to do some digging, right? A covenant belt. A covenant belt. Oh, it's also known as a covenant chain. That's why it wouldn't come up. So let me try covenant chain. So I'm about to put this in the chat for what a covenant chain is. So if you find anything that needs to be covered or find any more information on it that we can gain from it, please let us know. So it's in there based off of Wikipedia. It says a covenant chain was a series of alliances and treaties developed during the 17th century, primarily between the Haudenosaunee and the British colonies of North America, with other Native American tribes added. First developed in New York area at a time of violence and social instability for the colonies and Native Americans, the English and Haudenosaunee councils and subsequent treaties were based on supporting peace and stability to preserve trade. They addressed issues of colonial settlement and tried to suppress violence between the colonists and the Indian tribes, as well as among the New England and colony of Virginia. So the history of the colony belt, it looks like the belt that they used when they were inviting these chiefs to these council fires. It says the covenant chain is embodied in the two-row wampum of the Haudenosaunee. It was based in agreements negotiated between Dutch settlers in Netherlands, present-day New York, and the five nations of Haudenosaunee early in the 17th century. Their emphasis was on trade with the Native Americans, as the historian Bernard Bailey has noted. All the colonies, Dutch and English, were first established to create profits. I'm going to read that again. Their emphasis was on trade with the Native Americans, as the historian Bernard Bailey has noted. All the colonies, Dutch and English, were established to create profits. Through the Beaver Wars in the 17th century, the Haudenosaunee conquered other tribes and territories for new hunting grounds and to take captives to add to their populations, depleted from warfare. The new European infectious diseases. The tribes in New England suffered even more depletion. The Haudenosaunee expanded their influence, conquering or displacing other tribes from maritime Canada west of Mississippi Valley and from the Canadian Shield south to the Ohio Valley. When the English took over New Netherland in 1664 and established the province of New York, they renewed these agreements. So conflicts erupted in New England in King Philip's War in 1675, the most destructive war in the 17th century North America, in which more than 600 colonists and 3,000 Indians died. Nearly at the same time was Bacon's Rebellion in Virginia. Both resulted in widespread suffering and loss among Native American tribes. So basically, because of all the constant wars that were going on, the covenant chain was basically created between the Haudenosaunee, the Dutch, and English.
And that's to stop the violence chain.
Basically, a form of a series of treaties. So I'm going back to read from the Wikipedia on the Seneca people. Where was I? Oh yeah, and also now we're back to where it talks about Joseph Brand twisted corn planters' words to wait as a sign of cowardice. Grand Rising, Carrie Bay. So look at this, because we know that Joseph Brand and corn planter were related. But even in their rise to power, they're playing each other. The British noticed that the Indian Wars were, like I said, divided on the issue. So the British presented them with rum bells, ostrich feathers, and a covenant belt. The Americans attempted a similar wine and dine method on the Tuscarora and Oneidas. In the end, the Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca sided with the British, and the Tuscarora and Oneida sided with the Americans. From this point on, the Iroquois would have a serious role in the American Revolution. Stop right there. So basically, what they're saying is both sides, the English and the Americans, aka 13 colonies, brought gifts, alcohol, and a treaty to be signed. So you give them gifts, drink with them, and get them to sign these treaties so your soldiers can go out and fight. So you can only imagine that a lot of these soldiers, a lot of these Indians were fighting drunk, which led to the widespread alcohol. Right? Now, according to, Western movies, what did majority of the quote unquote doctors use to dull the pain, or to use when they was forming operations on soldiers during the war? Anybody know?
Alcohol.
So if you are addicted to alcohol and you are at war and something happens to you, it's very unlikely that alcohol is now going to work, right? It's like being addicted to Percocet or Vicodin. It doesn't have the same effect, or it takes much more for it to work, which does what? Creates addiction.
Building up a tolerance.
Exactly. So from this point on, the Iroquois would have a serious role in the American Revolution. The war divided them, and now they would fight against each other from 1777 till the end on opposite sides. Now, it didn't say until the end of the war. It said until the end. So one of the most powerful northern tribes who had a peace treaty before the Europeans came have now been split almost down the middle, fighting on opposite sides in a war that's not theirs. Major influences: greed, power, rum, bells, ostrich feathers. So are we starting to see, or are we starting to understand how all this took place? Is it now starting to make sense that even though the Europeans have some, if not a lot of the blame, they do not have all the blame? Because you figure now we're in the middle of the 1700s. Majority of the tribes have had an extensive amount of exposure to these Europeans, both good and bad. So they know who they're dealing with. So it's no secret now. They are still outnumbering these Europeans, yet they're still continuing to do business with them, and they're not kicking them off of the continent. Because it'll be easy for them to do so because they still outnumber them. So let's look at the involvement in the American Revolution for the Oneida, Onondaga, Seneca, and the rest of the Six Nations. It reads, the Seneca chose to side with the British in the American Revolution. One of the earliest battles the Haudenosaunee were involved in occurred on August 6, 1777. In Oriskany. During the Battle of Oriskany, Native Americans led a brutal attack against the rebel Americans where they killed, wounded, or captured the majority of Patriot soldiers. The Seneca governor Blacksnake described the battle from the viewpoint of the victorious Indians. As we approached to a fighting, we had prepared to make one fire and run amongst them. So we, while we doing it, feels no more to kill the beasts and kill most all Americans' army. Only a few white men escaped from us. There I have seen the most dead bodies all it over that I never did see. And I'm reading what's supposed to be his words. Author Ray Raphael made a connection between the Seneca warriors and the Continental Army soldiers by noting that Blacksnake was not unlike known Revolutionary veterans, Joseph Plum Martin and James Collins, and other white American veterans who could never finally resolve whether killing was right or wrong. As the war went on, many more brutal attacks and atrocities would be committed by both sides, notably the Sullivan Expedition, which devastated the Haudenosaunee and Seneca lands. The Iroquois were involved, or the Haudenosaunee, were involved in numerous and other battles during the American Revolution, notably raids like Cherry Valley Massacre, the Battle of Minisink, were carefully planned raids on the trail laid out from the Susquehanna to the Delaware Valley and over the Pine Hill to the Esopus County. In 1778, Cayuga, Onondaga, and Mohawk warriors conducted raids on white settlements in the upper Susquehanna Valley. Although the Iroquois were active participants, like Seneca, Governor Blacksnake were extremely fed up with the brutality of the war. He noted particularly on his behavior at Oriskany and how he felt it was great sinful by the sight of God. Warriors like Blacksnake were feeling the mental toll of killing so many people during the American Revolution. As Raphael noted in his book, warfare had been much more personal for the Haudenosaunee before the American Revolution. During the Revolution, these once proud Haudenosaunee were now reduced to conducting brutal acts such as killing of women and children at the Cherry Valley Massacre and the clubbing of surviving American soldiers in Oriskany. Although Seneca, like Governor Blacksnake, felt sorrow for their brutal actions, the Americans responded in a colder and more brutal fashion. This retaliation came in Sullivan Expedition. The planning of the Sullivan Expedition began in 1778 as a way to respond to the Iroquois' victories and massacres. The plan came about from the complaints of New Yorkers of the Continental Congress. The New Yorkers had suffered from the massive Iroquois offenses from 1777 to 1778, and they wanted revenge. Besides the brutal battles described previously, the New Yorkers were especially concerned with Joseph Brant. Joseph Brant had Mohawk parents and British lineage, and at a young age he was taken under the superintendent for Indian affairs. Brant grew to be a courageous and well-spoken man, and he took up the fight for the British because of harassment and discrimination from the Americans during the lead-up to the American Revolution. Thus, Brant formed a military group known as Brant's Volunteers, which consisted of Mohawks and Loyalists. Brant and his band of volunteers led many raids against hamlets and farms in New York, especially Tyrant County. As a result of Brant's exploits, the Haudenosaunee offensives, and several massacres the Iroquois inflicted against colonist towns. In 1778, the Seneca and other Western nations attacked by United States forces as part of the Sullivan Expedition. George Washington called upon Continental Army General John Sullivan, who was now a general, to lead this attack upon the Haudenosaunee. He had received anywhere from 3,000 to 4,500 soldiers to wreak havoc on the helpless Haudenosaunee. Overall, the Sullivan Expedition wreaked untold havoc and destruction upon the Iroquois land as the soldiers destroyed. As the soldiers destroyed not only the homes of the Iroquois or Haudenosaunee, but their food stocks as well. Seneca women, Mary Jamison, recalled how the Continental soldiers destroyed every article of food kind that they could lay their hands on. To make matters worse, the Haudenosaunee, and especially hard winter in 1780, caused additional suffering from downtrodden Haudenosaunee. The Sullivan Expedition highlighted a period of true total war within the American Revolution. The Americans looked to cripple the Haudenosaunee. They accomplished that, but they instilled a deep hatred in the Haudenosaunee. Grand Rising, Will. Please forgive me for not pronouncing your last name because I don't want to pronounce it wrong. So if you could, I guess, type it out so I can pronounce it correctly, that'd be cool. He says, I like y'all platform and love the knowledge, but could you guys let the public know what book you're reading from? Also about inviting other researchers such as A1, Cudimeo, Dan Calloway. Well, what we do is we actually put the link in the chat. So you can
just scroll up. Just scroll up a little bit.
Yeah, so if you scroll up, you'll know exactly what we're reading from. And as you can see on the page, there's a call-in number. One of the things that makes the Conscience Assembly different from other channels is we don't have a problem with inviting people on, but at the end of the day, you got to be on code. And what I mean by be on code, we can ill afford to be working with anybody that works with people that are scammers. And I'm not saying or insinuating that these individuals are. But what I'm saying is before somebody comes on, they're going to get vetted like anybody should. Just like I would expect to get vetted before I go on anybody else's show. So we don't have a problem with inviting people on, but we have to make sure that they're doing the right thing, just like we're trying to do the right thing. But we definitely appreciate your inquiry. So basically, we're talking about the Seneca's involvement in the Revolutionary War and how it basically affected them and their people. So what we're seeing, and what I'm seeing, is that there is very little fighting, but there are a lot of raids. And unfortunately, the raids are happening to civilians. And there are a lot of what they call casualties of war. Bones, are you noticing the same thing, or am I missing something? Is anybody in the chat noticing the same thing, or am I missing something?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing... Go ahead.
Yeah, caught in the middle. Then you can justify the acting savagely because you already got them drunk up, emotionals flared up, and you just sent people out there to just start causing damage for your own personal gain.
So it doesn't speak about them fighting each other as much as it does there being retaliatory strikes on colonists. So it seems to me that the colonists are taking a large brunt, just like the Haudenosaunee longhouses and basically, for lack of a better term, innocent bystanders. So a lot of the women and children for both the European, the Americans, and the Haudenosaunee are taking a lot of casualties. And remember, there was a major weather problem, or it was very cold in 1780. So not only are they raiding these people's homes, they're actually getting rid of their food and burning their food to the ground. So it appears that there were more civilian casualties than there were soldiers. And what this is doing is this is fueling hatred from one side to another. Because it's one thing to have soldiers fight against each other. It's another thing to go in and burn up somebody's town who has absolutely nothing to do with it. That's just my take on it. Let me put the link in here so Will can actually see what we're reading from. We're reading from Wikipedia. So hopefully you'll be able to see that link and be able to catch up. So that's the thing that I find interesting at the very least. We have a divided tribe, the Haudenosaunee, who consists of 6 nations. Half of the Haudenosaunee went to fight for the American Revolution, and the other half went to fight against the American Revolution. So you have brother against brother, cousin against cousin, father against son, son against uncle. And the greatest casualties appear to be the colonists and the women and children of the Haudenosaunee. And it basically talks about it created a deep hatred in the Haudenosaunee warriors. Because you figure you go on your raid and then you get word that your village has been raided or your tribe has been raided. How's that gonna make you feel? Especially now when you've been doing a lot of drinking, and we know what alcohol can do to our people, right? Because remember, they basically have as much alcohol as they want. So it says after the Sullivan expedition, the recovered Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, and Mohawk, angered by the destruction caused, resumed their raids on American settlements in New York. These Haudenosaunee tribes not only attacked and plundered the American colonies, they also set fire to Oneida and Tuscarora settlements. The Iroquois continued their attacks upon the Americans, even the General Charles Cornwallis. First Marquis Cornwallis had surrendered at Yorktown in 1781. They did not stop until the Allies had caved in and surrendered. In 1782, the Iroquois had finally stopped fighting when the British General Frederick Calmont recalled them, pending the negotiations of Paris. The Iroquois also seemed to have a much larger knowledge of the war beyond the scope of New York. A letter from 1782 written by George Washington to John Hanson described intelligence captured from the British. In the letter, British soldiers encountered a group of Native Americans and a discussion ensues. A soldier by the name of Campbell informs the Native Americans that the war ended and the Americans expressed their sorrow for the war. However, an unknown Seneca Sachem informed the British that the Americans and French had beat the English, that the letter could no longer carry on the war, and that the Indians do it well and must now be sacrificed or submit to the Americans. So now I'm reading what happens after the American Revolution. So this is what became of the Senecas after they lost the war. With the Iroquois League dissolved, the nation settled in new villages along Buffalo Creek, Tonawanda Creek, Cattaraugus Creek in western New York, the Seneca, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Mohawk. As allies of the British, were required to cede all their lands in New York State at the end of the war, as Britain ceded its territories in the 13 colonies to the new United States. The late war Seneca settlements were assigned to them as their reservations after the Revolutionary War as part of the Treaty of Fort Stanwix in 1784. Although the Oneida and Tuscarora were allies of the rebels, they were also forced to give up most of their territory. So let's get this straight. The Oneida and Tuscarora fought on behalf of the United States, which were then at that time the 13 colonies before they won the war, but they were still required to give up their territory because of what? Because they were Haudenosaunee. What sense does that make? Am I missing something? On July 8th, 1788, the Seneca, along with some Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, and Cayuga tribes, sold rights to land east of Genesee River in New York to Oliver Phelps and Nathan Gorham of Massachusetts. On November 11, 1794, the Seneca, along with other Haudenosaunee nations, signed the Treaty of Canada-Iuga, with the United States agreeing to peaceful relationships. On September 15, 1797, at the Treaty of Big Tree, the Seneca sold their lands west of the Genesee River, retaining 10 reservations for themselves. The sale opened up the rest of western New York for settlement by European Americans. On January 15, 1838, the U.S. and some Seneca leaders signed the Treaty of Buffalo Creek, by which the Seneca were to relocate to a tract of land west of the state of Missouri, but most refused to go. The majority of the Seneca in New York formed a modern elected government, the Seneca Nation of the Indians, in 1848. The Tonawanda band of Seneca Indians split off, choosing to keep a traditional form of tribal government. Both tribes are federally recognized in the United States. Quick question. When the United States wins a war on its own territory, and I'm using air quotes, Grand Rising Free, why is it necessary to have somebody sell you land if you want it in war? Does anybody find that strange? Because if we're waging war, shouldn't the spoils of the victory be the fact that I get to take your land? I mean, but it says they sold this land. So the Iroquois were on the losing side. So you have the Seneca, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, and Mohawk. They fought on the side of the British. They lost the war, but they still sold the land. What am I missing? What am I missing? Can somebody help me? Because they lost the war, right? And they knew as part of losing the war they would have to leave, but they end up getting compensated. Now I'm not saying that's a bad deal, but that doesn't seem like a war. I don't know. Just interesting to me. So let's look at the Seneca as of today as it's described in Wikipedia. While it is not known exactly how many Seneca there are, approximately 10,000 Seneca live near Lake Erie. About 7,800 people are citizens of Seneca Nation of Indians. These members live or work on 5 reservations in New York. The Allegheny, which contains the city of Salamanca, Salamanca. The Cattaraugus near Gowanda, New York, the Buffalo Creek Territory located in downtown Buffalo, the Niagara Falls Territory located in Niagara Falls, New York, and Oil Springs Reservation near Cuba. Few Seneca reside at the Oil Springs, Buffalo Creek, or Niagara territories due to the small amount of land at each. The last 2 territories are held and used specifically for the gaming casinos which the tribes have developed. The Tonawanda band of Seneca Indians has about 1,200 citizens who live on their Tonawanda reservation near Akron, New York. The third federally recognized tribe is the Seneca Cayuga tribe of Oklahoma, who live near Miami, Oklahoma. They are descendants of Seneca and Cayuga who migrated from New York to Ohio before the Revolutionary War under pressure from European encroachment. They were removed at the Indian Territory west of Mississippi River in 1830s. Many Seneca and other Iroquois migrated to Canada during and after the Revolutionary War, where the Crown gave them land in compensation for what was lost in their traditional territories. Hold up. So they sold the land, which means they got financially compensated, and then they were given land by Canada, which eventually they got taken away. And it reads that some 10,000 to 25,000 Seneca are citizens of 6 nations and reside on the Grand River Territory, the major Haudenosaunee Reservation near Brantford, Ontario. Enrolled members of Seneca Nation also live elsewhere in the United States. Some move to urban locations for work.
Come again? Let's say come again? Move where?
Some move to urban locations for work. So you know what they're saying, right? What they're admitting? They moved. They moved.
Na, na, na.
You're breaking up, Bones.
Here we go again.
Yeah. So let's look at the Kinzua Dam displacement. It says the federal government, through the Corps of Engineers, undertook a major project of a dam for flood control of the Allegheny River. The proposed project was planned to affect a major portion of Seneca territory in New York, and it began in 1960. Construction of the Kinzua Dam of the Allegheny River forced relocation of approximately 600 Seneca from 10,000 acres of land which they had occupied under the 1794 Treaty of Canandaigua. They were relocated to Salamanca, near the northern shore of the Allegheny Reservoir that resulted from the flooding of land behind the dam. The Seneca had protested the plan for the project, filing suit in court and appealing to President John F. Kennedy to halt the construction. The Seneca lost a court case in 1961, citing the immediate need for flood control. Kennedy denied their requests. This violation of Seneca rights, as well as those of many other Indian nations, was memorialized in 1960s by folk singer Peter LaForge, who wrote "As Long as Grass Shall Grow." It was also sung by Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash. Peter LaForge's recording can be heard, "As Long as the Grass Shall Grow," and Peter LaForge sings of the Indians. So this dam was built to control Indian lands. Grand Rising, Marlon P. And it cost them 10,000 acres. Because basically what happens when you dam up a river, you end up removing water from one side and basically pushing it or forcing it over to another side. So land that was once underwater is no longer underwater, but land that was once not underwater is now underwater. If you want an example of that, all you have to do is go Google the flood in Oklahoma back in February and March of this year. That don't make any sense. I mean, it makes sense, but that ain't cool. So John F. Kennedy allowed this to happen. So it doesn't matter who the president is; they're gonna do what they need to do. So let's look at the leased land disputes. The United States Senate had never ratified the treaty with New York made with the Haudenosaunee nations, and only Congress had the right to make such treaties. We read about this earlier. In the late 20th century, several tribes filed suit in land claims seeking to regain their traditional lands by having the treaty declared invalid. The Seneca had other issues with New York and had challenged some long-term leases in court. The dispute centered around a 99-year lease granted by the Seneca in 1890 for the lands now in the city of Salamanca and nearby villages. In 1990, the Seneca Settlement Act was passed by Congress to resolve the long-running land dispute, requiring the state to pay compensation and provide some lands as well. The households that refused to accept the Seneca ownership, 15 in all, were evicted from their homes. The settlement cropped up again in the early 2000s, and issues arose over Seneca use of settled lands to establish casino gaming operations, which have generated considerable revenues for many tribes since the late 20th century. Then you have the Grand Islands claims. On August 25, 1993, the Seneca filed a lawsuit in the United States District Court to begin an action to reclaim land allegedly taken from it by the New York without having gained required approval of the treaty by the United States Senate. Only the U.S. government constitutionally has power to make treaties with the Native Americans, with the Native American nations. The lands consisted of Grand Island and several smaller islands in Niagara River. In November 1993, the Tonawanda Band of Seneca Indians moved to join the claim as a plaintiff. It was granted standing as a plaintiff. In 1998, the United States intervened in the lawsuits on behalf of the plaintiffs in the claim. This was to allow the claim to proceed against New York. The state had asserted that it was immune from suit under the 11th Amendment of the United States Constitution. After extensive negotiations and pretrial procedures, all parties to the claim moved for judgment as the matter of law. By decision and order dated June 21st, 2002, the trial court held that the Seneca ceded the subject lands to Great Britain in 1764 treaties of peace after the French and Indian War, the 7-Year War. Thus, the disputed lands were no longer owned by the Seneca at the time of the 1794 Treaty of Canada-Igor. The court found that the state of New York's purchase of the lands from the Seneca in 1815 was intended to avoid conflict with them, but the state already owned it by virtue of Great Britain's defeat in the Revolution and secession of its lands to the United States, and by default to the states in which the colonial lands were located. The Seneca appealed this decision, and the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit affirmed the trial's court's decision in September 9, 2004. The Seneca sought revenue of this decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, which on June 5, 2006 announced that it would decline to hear the case, leaving the lower court rulings in place. And Free puts down, that could really interfere with migration routes too. Who told them they could alter the river's natural flow pattern? Well, as we know that there are, on average, there's at least, I would say, 15 to 20 dams in each state. And it does mess up the flow of the migrational trails. Like I said, it uncovers water from land that was once covered, and then land that was once uncovered, it now covers it. So basically, you're taking land that had no intentions on being flooded and flooding it, and lands that had no intention on being unflooded and unflooded. So basically, you're basically moving water from one spot to another.
How do you make people move that don't want to move?
You flood them. That's how you do it. In 2007, the United States was permitted to intervene. Oh, I already read that part. No, this is a throughways claim. So on April 18th, 2007, the Seneca Nation laid claim to stretch of Interstate 90 that crosses the Cattaraugus Reservation. They revoked their 1954 agreement that had granted the Interstate Highway System and New York State Thruway Authority permission to build the highway through the territory. They were retaliating for more Governor Elliot Spitzer's attempts to collect taxes from tribal businesses operating with Seneca sovereignty territory. The Seneca had previously brought suit against the state on the issue of the highway easement. The court in 1999 had ruled that the state could not be sued by the tribe. Magistrate Heckman's report and recommendation. It was noted that the state of New York asserted its immunity from suit against both courts of the complaint. One count was the Seneca tribe's challenge regarding the state's acquisition of Grand Island and the other smaller islands in Niagara River, and the second count challenged the state's throughway easement. In 2007, the United States was permitted to intervene on behalf of the Seneca Nation and the Tonawanda Band of Seneca Indians. The United States was directed to file an amended complaint that clearly states the relief sought by the United States in the action. In this amended complaint, the United States did not seek any relief on behalf of the Seneca Nation. Relative to the throughway easement, by not seeking such relief, its amended complaint, the United States permitted the action relative to the throughway easement to be subject to dismissal based on New York's immunity from suit under the 11th Amendment of the United States Constitution. On May 4, 2007, the Seneca Nation threatened to revoke its agreement and easement for Interstate 86. So if we can't flood you, we'll run the interstate through it.
Right through the middle of town. Don't that sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. Urban renewal, aka urban removal, when they ran interstates through our businesses.
Mm-hmm. Then they say that Indians went to the urban areas for work.
Yep.
Just saying. Just a saying.
So I mean, I've been to a lot of urban areas, and I ain't seen nobody that looks like what the Indians are depicted on TV. So what Indians are they talking about? Just a question.
I wonder, and I wonder.
But the thing that I found interesting was that you remember how we were reading how there were lands, treaties that were uh, agreed upon between the French and the and some tribes, the United States and some tribes, and how these lands, even though they had treaty signed, they never did anything with these lands.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know why.
Yeah, they flooded them out. So now you know why some tribes were running around buying land, because the land they had prior was flooded out.
But not only that, but when the tribes come back and try to sue, they go, well, you didn't really own this land anyway. You had given this land to the French during the 1600s,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we won the war, we got that land back from we got actually got that land from the French. You already given up ownership of that land, so you can't claim something that you had already sold.
Mm-hmm.
Just because they didn't act on that land doesn't mean that you didn't have rights to it. Now, what they could have done was because that land never got acted upon, then I'm sure they had people living on it, so that means it was settled on it. Why didn't they just claim squatters' rights?
Because you got to look at what the Americans did. The Americans put people on these lands, knowing that people be gone for a while. Remember reading that yesterday.
Yeah. So
Because tribes would be gone at least 10 years because they would get a land time to regenerate. They wouldn't burn the soil out.
so here's a real question, because it doesn't give you how many casualties there were on either side. I'm looking up how many English soldiers died in the American Revolution. Because you had two tribes fighting.
It is basically with any war or any so-called war. In reality, it's just a displacement and a movement of people. Will break out in your neighborhood. Don't it affect everybody who resides in that neighborhood?
Oh, most definitely.
You see it going on other land masses. People who got nothing to do with the war gotta pack up and migrate.
Yep, or just being bombarded with shelling.
Mm-hmm. Those who choose to stay.
Free put, many were intentionally displaced. Hurts my heart because it's still happening. Remember what happened in NOLA after Hurricane Katrina? Yep, that's true. The levees all of a sudden broke.
Which we know, if you study the case, they were built by the United States military, but couldn't be sued because in the contract they had that they could not be found liable.
So why would you have in a contract that you couldn't be liable if you was under the impression that you couldn't possibly be sued?
Look up a lot of these dams and see who's responsible for them. I'm guaranteeing you, you're gonna find the Army Corps of Engineers. Oops. Isn't surveying, scouting, isn't that part of the military?
Hmm. That's true.
Who comes in to lay that first infrastructure for everybody else to come behind?
You talking about for the military?
And just in general, think about it. If you're gonna go someplace, before you send anybody, you even see it now. You're gonna send the military in. Who sets up the first infrastructure?
The Army Corps of Engineers.
Mm-hmm. Why would it be any different? They just wasn't walking freely around here building dams. Had to be some type of deterrent, because we got tribes at this time that's not with it.
Right.
So what would there has to be some type of deterrent. These people, like I said, these people just ain't walking around digging holes, building dams freely.
I'm sitting here, I'm over here on this one website looking at the battles, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not even mentioning the Indians that fought. They're making it seem as though the Indians didn't even fight in the American Revolutionary War or the Revolutionary War.
When we know they were the main combatants.
They get an honorable mention.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Do all the work. Appreciate it.
It says the American Revolution was a truly global conflict with battles being fought in North America, the Caribbean, and Europe. The British were aided by both loyal Native American tribes and Hessian troops from various German principalities. The American Patriots were aided by an even larger coalition of European powers, which included French, Spain, United States, Netherlands, and officers of various European nations. Now, wait a minute. It mentions that the British were aided by Native Americans, but it doesn't mention that the Americans were aided by Native Americans.
Because remember, those Indians
Became
considered
citizens.
themselves Americans.
Right. That's crazy. You're right, free more theater.
Because if you think about it, them nations that work with the English that later on became America, that's a mixture of English and Indians.
That's true.
Think about it. Them people that came, they were under British rule. When they separated, they considered themselves what? English.
Right.
So what became of the English and them Indians that was working together? Americans.
When you're right, sir.
They came together, formed their corporation as business. Because it was always business to them. It was always about controlling resources. How do you control a people that manufacture everything that they need? You got to take control of them resources.
Right.
And if you study history, you see that's what they did. So now you go from producing your own to consuming everything they give you. That's how you keep a population in check. And studying the timeline, you can see the manipulation of pieces for them to put it into play. We know about the Indian agents whose job was to convince the Indians to give up their own culture, their own way of agriculture, to pick up European lifestyles. We know about chiefs that came from Indian mothers and either Irish or British fathers, European fathers, that were elected to be chiefs. We see
Yeah,
the
I don't mean I
deals and
gotta like it.
contracts that was made. And what you were saying?
I said, yeah, that don't mean I gotta like it.
Yeah. To the point we still see the effect of these deals today. When you break it down and you see what's really going on, when you get rid of the theater, the romanticism of stories, when you wipe all that away, you actually get to see what it is and see how it's still applied.
Yeah, when we was reading about the Seneca, it basically said those colonies, the English and Dutch colonies, were originally created for profit because they wanted to get in on the fur and the beaver trade. So, I mean, it does make sense. And also, too, as the Europeans started mixing in with the tribes and getting their own chiefs elected, who ended up becoming war chiefs, the whole purpose of it was to continue to stay in war so that you can basically get the territory and divide it up amongst your kin.
Mm-hmm. The
So
manufacturers, producers made a deal. I mean, don't sugarcoat it. The Indians were the producers. They had the land and the resources. The English, who later on became Americans, they were the original workforce. They made a deal. Management and labor made a deal. To put it in layman's terms, because a lot of them riots and strikes at that time, when we dig behind it, what was it about? Labor, work. And even when you see it now, billion-dollar industries, because they're a billion-dollar industry, are they showing leeway to the employee? Are they still working on their death like an indentured servant?
Well, for many, they're still being overworked and underpaid and underrepresented.
Basically, remove the veil, no change. Clothes get flashier, cars get faster, entertainment come quicker. But still, we're doing the same thing, trapped in the same loop.
Unfortunately.
But the great part is this. If we know one of the root problems is our dependency on this European culture and lifestyle, wouldn't the first thing, like we always say, start doing research and to find yourself, to find your people, your tribe, start taking the time to learn your history like we learned this foreign history, these foreign ways?
Yeah, that makes sense, but it seems that a lot of people, well, I'm not going to say a lot because I don't know everybody, but it just seems to be, or it appears to be a lot of people, that'd be the best way to mention it, want to take the easy way out. Instead of doing the genealogy, instead of tying into their tribe, it appears that they would rather petition the United States government to take land away from existing tribes and give them the land so they now can form their own tribe, thus doing the same thing that they accuse the colonizers of doing.
PSA, for those who don't know, The United States government is set up as a tribe. The majority of your members of the United States government are tied back into tribes. The structure of your Constitution, the structure of your Congress and your Senate, your three branches of government, where do you think that comes from? See, everybody keep trying to find out what the trick is. It's simple. They're living the ways of the ancestors. We're not. Whether you like it or not, it's the cold hard truth. What do you say when you find out, okay, like we said, George Bush, they tie back to tribes, to chiefs, knowing their genealogy, so knowing what they can and cannot do. And we still guessing. I mean, it's really not that hard. We make it harder than what it has to be. The same way we walked out is the same way we walk back in. Yesterday's show, we talked about a little about resources that's available in all of our communities. So my question is, how many is going to take this research on their own time and learn as much about these resources in your community? To realize that there are solutions around you. To actually join in and start participating to make a change. Because if you're sitting down just complaining, you are part of the problem. Let's take it among ourselves to go beyond just meeting up and talking about these resources. Let's start as a community. Start the conversation and the narrative of accessing these resources. Taking the time out to use the resources that are available to you before we take them for granted and we don't have them anymore.
Or better yet, before we end up losing all of them and have to continue to pay for them, because that's what's happening. Someone else is taking advantage of the resources that are available and they're making us pay for them. So much so now that there are, and this is not a shot at immigrants, this is a fact. They're coming in to our urban communities, opening up shops and stores with funds that were intended for us, because we don't know about these funds. We don't know about this money that was set aside in 1968 for our community. So since we're not using it, immigrants are still being allowed to come over here and access our resources. What was once land resources are now financial resources. So how is that any different now than what happened then?
We are allowing it. See, people say it's time to unite and work together. True. But unite and working together has to be in the application of these available resources in our communities. It can't be on narratives that's pulling us away from the objective. We have been doing that for too long. It's time to put the toys away and time to get to work. What good is information and knowledge if you never use it? And what good is the information and knowledge if it can't help you improve your situations daily? There's no magic cure, no magic shot that you're going to pull something up on a piece of paper and bang, everything goes away. It's a process, and we must be willing to start at step one. First things first. Because we're just at the American Revolution. And if you can see the mechanisms of this system being applied and working then, imagine how much worse as we start getting up to present time. Now's the time to start moving. Now's the time to start applying. Let's stop saying we're working and let's start working. Let's start reaching out and meeting the people of our communities. Finding the conditions that our brothers and sisters are struggling with. We have to get out of this mentality just because I made it, everything is cool. When we read that was part of the plan to break us out of our communal living, to turn us into individuals. To make us chase this so-called American dream. But at the price of leaving your children in the dark. So is it worth it?
And Free says, don't forget that overcharge in urban communities on top of using resources meant for us. Everyone has been playing for keeps except the Indian, which perpetuates our problem. And that's what it boils down to. Because we do not know, or we didn't know, or not enough of us knew. And those of us that did know didn't let everybody else know because they wanted to capitalize. So all it does is perpetuate us being in this situation that we're in. So when we speak of the resources that are being complained that don't exist, that's not true because the resources do exist. The resources exist in every city and every county. Most people just don't know where to look. And they've been hiding right up under your nose, or up under our nose, since 1968. The question is what are you going to do to access them? Because they're being accessed. They're just not being accessed by you. So are you going to continue to petition the United States government to take land from your brothers and sisters who you claim you respect because they're our ancestors? Or are you going to get off your behind and go deal with the county, city, and state that you live in and get what's rightfully yours that was given to you that you refuse to go access because you're too busy asking your daddy to take land from your brother and sister? So instead of going to deal with your family, you rather deal with the colonizers that you complain against. That doesn't make any sense to me. Your name is on a roll that's tied to land for you and your family. But yet, instead of going through that process, you feel much more comfortable asking the colonizer and the oppressor that you talk about to take land from your ancestors and give it to you. Why? Because you make a declaration or you make a statement? If you think that's going to work, then I dare you to give your neighbor a piece of paper declaring that that car that sits in their driveway is yours because you're original here, and see where that gets you. Because that's basically the same thing you're doing. me, it doesn't make sense. And I'm still waiting on proof that it actually works and that it still works. And as of
I
today,
got one. I
go,
got one better.
what's up?
Show me proof that the resources that we're speaking on don't exist.
Mm, that's a good one.
That's my challenge. Show us that the resources and the way it's applied and the way it's used in our neighborhoods is incorrect.
Well, that's gonna be hard for them to do because a lot of us have been talking about what happened to brother Nipsey Hussle and all of the great things that he did, but most people don't realize that he was actually using those same resources. Don't believe me? Go do your research. So if you're talking about Nipsey Hussle and the things that he did, you're basically proving what we said correct. Sorry.
And that's all we're saying is the time of debating, questioning, guessing is over. This is solution based, and we're showing you that the solutions are here. You have to now take it among yourself to start accessing them. Start finding out more in your communities. Start being more active in your communities. That's where the individualism come in. Let's get out of this and start asking what somebody can do for us and start asking ourselves, what can we do for our community today to make it better for tomorrow? And if we each take on that responsibility, watch how fast the shift. And no, we keep saying we don't expect everybody to do it. But those who choose to, do it at the best of your ability. And I'm going to say it again, let's let those who are watching know this is not a movement. This is not a fad. This is not a trend. This is our life.
Speaking of which, did the website ever get finished, Bones? Everything get transferred over?
It got 4 more pages, but that'll be done today.
Okay. There are over 50 sites on Conscious Assembly where you can access to do your genealogy or get help with your genealogy for free. The question is, how many people have actually went to that website and started accessing those services? So what I'm saying is, somebody took the time out of their busy schedule to source 50 free sites for you to start doing research on your ancestors and do your genealogy. Meaning that's work that you did not have to do. And the question I ask you is, how many of us have actually been on those sites to start doing our genealogy? And if you have not, then why not? I want to read something about what the Seneca are doing as far as medical marijuana initiative, which I find interesting. It says the Seneca tribe has decided to enter the fast-growing medical marijuana industry. By doing this, Seneca will find itself growing business-wise and participate in a business venture that in recent years is growing very quickly. According to Bill Wagner, an author writing for High Times, members of Seneca Nation of Indians in western New York State voted up a referendum November 3rd, giving tribal leaders approval to move towards setting up a medical marijuana business on their territories. The measures passed by a vote of 448 to 364, giving the Seneca Nation Council the power to draft laws and regulations allowing the manufacture, use, and distribution of cannabis for medical purposes. A decision on our nation's path of action on medical cannabis is far from made, cautioned Seneca President Maurice A. John Sr. in comments to the Buffalo News. But now, having heard from the Seneca people, our discussions and due diligence can begin in earnest. Entering the marijuana industry is thought to help stimulate the economy of the Seneca tribe and create local business dispensaries and other types of jobs involving medical marijuana. Let me ask you a question: Is medical medical yeah, say that 3 times fast? Is medical marijuana legal in New York? Anybody know?
It's not legal federally anywhere.
No, I'm not saying legal. I'm saying is it legal in the state of New York?
I think they did, didn't they?
I don't know. I'm asking.
They just recently. I believe they recently just. Well, you said the state of New York. I'm thinking about. Yeah, I believe New York is. No, it's not a legal state. I think it's just decriminalized. Decriminalized meaning, what is it? Like a traffic violation almost. You get a ticket in some cases. Don't get me to lying.
I'm looking it up.
I hear you. I hear you tapping away. So yeah, let's get a confirmation on that. I think the majority of the country now is medical, at the very least. Or over half, I mean, not majority, the over half of the country. Or close to it.
Says on July of 2014, Governor Cuomo signed a Compensation Care Act, which created legal protections for patents and caregivers, authorizing the state to license and regulate registered organizations to cultivate and sell medical cannabis to patients. Patients must obtain a registration identification card after getting written certification from their physician. In order to certify patients for use of medical marijuana, physicians are required to take education courses, have medical expertise in the qualifying condition for which they wish to recommend cannabis, and provide continuous care of the patient in order for the patient to maintain legal protection. Physicians must also state the dosage patients should use, which determines the 30-day supply of medicine that a patient may possess. So yes, it says brief summary of legislation. Must be certified by the healthcare practitioner, must have a severe disability, or this is who can get it. Healthcare practitioners must report all patient certifications information to the Department of Health, must certify medical cannabis uses that consist of special legal limits. Got the designated caregivers, then you got the dispensary. It says, must be licensed by the Department of Health to legally dispense medication to patients or caregiver, must meet standards assessed by the Department of Health, can operate as non-profit organizations or for-profit organizations, businesses. Initial registration is valid for 2 years, in which time renewal is required. Must report all sales, deliveries, and distribution of medical cannabis. Must pay a tax of 7% on the gross receipts from the sale of medical marijuana. 22.5% of tax on all revenue must stay in the local county, which is registered organization manufactures or dispense medical marijuana. Must include a safety insert developed by the Department of Health and each purpose. The reason why I'm reading this because one thing I want y'all to understand, it says can operate as non-profit organizations or for-profit organizations. What are tribes? They're non-profit organizations, right?
Facts.
Indigenous intelligence says this may be a stupid question, but if you meet a qualification as far as servicing the community or hire people in urban communities but have not tied back into your tribes, those PIH funds are accessible. Indigenous intelligence, that is a phenomenal question. And the answer to that question is yes. That's how these individuals are able to access those funds.
Mm-hmm. Because it has nothing to do if you are the Indian. It has to do with being in our communities.
Now there are funds specifically that are set aside for tribes or tribal members or people that are Indians. But many of the PIH codes don't require you to be Indian. They just require you to service the community. So that was a great question.
Yeah,
So
indigenous intelligence. Don't worry about stupid questions. Just ask the right question, and you'll get the right answer. I don't think anything is a stupid question.
The catchphrase to it is urban area. Urban area. The phrase. And who lives in these urban areas, man? I might ask anyone.
us, the Indians that left some of the reservations and went to work in the urban areas and live in the urban areas, maybe. I don't know.
I think we stumbled on something here.
Man, that was a great question.
Give that man a prize. Question of the day.
I was going to say, since we've been talking about this, it probably is the best question we had. That's an inquiry right there.
And one of the things that people need to realize is you can go from being, what's the best way to put it? You can go from one form of indoctrination right into another form of indoctrination. Please believe it. You can go from a form of university or public indoctrination right into conscious community indoctrination. Meaning that your belief is that everything that you and your community believe is right and everything outside of that is wrong. It's still indoctrination. And I would love to see somebody prove the HUD website wrong. You walk outside your door if you live in an urban community and you see a store that is not owned by your people in your neighborhood, that resource has already been proven right.
Bingo. Come on now.
If you live in a major city or near a major city where there's a Walmart, Target, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, or any restaurant, you have already proven that those resources exist.
Test this. Test this out. Prove A2 wrong on this. Come on. This is public knowledge that's been resourced and being used since 1968. Come on now. We waiting. Anybody? Anyone? Anybody?
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Because that's gonna require them talking to people that they're scared of. That's gonna require them walking outside their door and getting from behind their computer and actually going to talk to somebody instead of having fans on YouTube. Then they might learn the truth. Can't have that happen. So I don't see anybody debunking that. And also, for the record, if you do some research, you'll find out that American Indians also are recognized as a nation, and they also have an embassy since 2009. So for those entities claiming that that American Indians don't have a nation and don't have an embassy, lie. Matter of fact, let me do this.
That's not the sounds of typing up a source out here, is it?
Now, why would I do that?
Ha ha.
It sounds like too much like the right thing to do.
I mean, yeah.
That'll take you to the embassy site. It's actually here in Washington D.C. If you want to come visit, come holler at me. You know where I live. Just so you can disprove it.
Mm-hmm.
It's less than 45 miles from where I live. This ain't a game.
The days of throwing darts blindfold at the map is over with. We know where we're trying to go. Walk up to the map and put the dart there. Stop playing. Let's get to work. Come on. There's work to be done. Resources to access to get it done. What we waiting on?
Oh, let me go ahead and do this too, because I want to make sure that I don't get accused of saying something and not putting it in there.
Not another source.
No, why would I do that?
Oh, yes, he did. I wonder how many people are going or have attempted to contact their local HUD representatives.
If they had, we'd know, because they would have put it. They would have mentioned it, or they should have mentioned it, because that's information you should be sharing with people in your community, because everybody has a HUD representative, so that's nothing that's sacred or secret. And here's
So
also.
again,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So again, do we want solutions or do we want to talk about solutions?
Here's also proof that the census is important to these resources that people claim don't exist or claim that we don't have. Free puts that blacks don't, and African Americans don't have an embassy, but Indians do. Perspective, perspective, perspective. Interesting. So I done put in 3 sources in less than 10 minutes. I've been asking for sources for 3 months and I ain't received one.
Not a one.
That's interesting. No, we've actually put out a lot more sources and a lot of videos. Interesting.
Come on now, y'all better use this info.
Because the info is being used, the resources are being used. The question is, do you care enough about your community to use it? Or do you care more about likes and views?
I'm gonna tell you like this, what this costs you? Some time. Just a little bit of time in the rising. Get this info, apply it to your area, pass it on, and let's get to building. Let's stop talking about building and let's build. What we gonna do? Barbecue and mildew now, come on.
Still no proof that asking Uncle Sam to take land from my ancestors and giving it to me actually works. I've been asking for that for now, the last past, 2 months, 3 months? Well, 2 months on air. I've been asking for it for the last 6 months off air. In back chats. Still ain't saying nothing. For you to be right, all it takes is one piece of proof. Just one.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5.
All you gotta do is produce one.
Uno.
One. Interesting.
Like giving them the keys to a brand new car and they worried about the color of the car. What?
Now they worried about registering the car. Because they don't want to be tied to the state. Not realizing that having a cell phone ties you to the state. Not realizing having a Google account ties you to the state. Not realizing that having a Facebook account and a YouTube channel ties you to the state. But you want to be separate. Okay. Let's see something. I was just reading something. And you got to take it with a grain of salt. But it says that despite recently closing hundreds of bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, the United States still maintains nearly 800 military bases in more than 70 countries and territories abroad. Did y'all hear that? The United States has over 800 military bases in over 70 countries, and there's not one foreign base in the United States. So how are you gonna be sovereign again? How are you gonna be separated from the government again? All you need is one piece of proof saying and showing that it has been done and it still is done, and you are absolutely right. And again, I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying I haven't seen it done. So what else we got on the Senecas before we head out for the day? Let's see. They're also looking at entering into a tax-free and gasoline cigarette sales. And it reads, the price advantage of Seneca's ability to sell tax-free gasoline and cigarettes has created a boom in their economy. They have established many service stations along the state highways that run through the reservations, as well as many internet cigarette stores. Competing businesses interests, competing business interests, and the state government object to their sales over the internet. The state of New York believes that the tribe's sales of cigarettes by internet are illegal. It also believes that the state has authority to tax non-Indians who patronize Seneca businesses, a principle which the Seneca reject. Seneca President Barry Snyder has defeated the price advantage as an issue of sovereignty. Secondly, he has cited the Treaty of Canada-Yuga and the Treaty of Buffalo Creek as a basis of Seneca exemption from collecting taxes on cigarettes to pay the state. The Appellate Division of New York Supreme Court, Third Department, had rejected this conclusion in 1994. The court held that the provisions of the treaty regarding taxation was only with regard to property tax. The New York Court of Appeals on December 1st, 1994 affirmed the lower court's decision. The Seneca have refused to extend these benefits and price advantages to non-Indians, in their own words, has little sympathy for outsiders who desire to do so. They have tried to prosecute non-Indians who have attempted to claim the price advantages of the Seneca, while operating a business on the reservation. Little Valley businessman Lloyd Long operated 2 Unimarts on those reservations, which were owned by Seneca women. He was arrested after investigation by federal authorities at the behest of Seneca Nation. In 2011, he was ordered by the court to pay more than $1 million in restitution and serve 5 years on probation. That's a good point, Doodle Vision. He says, disclaimer, if you're trying to use those PIH codes to get stuff, then you're worse than those abusing the codes now. Meaning, if you're using those codes for selfish gains and you're not using them to help, then you are worse than the colonizers and the oppressors that you are banging against when you speak about them.
100% unadulterated facts.
Which is the reason why it is imperative and important that we be very careful in who we associate ourselves with. And when I say we, I mean all of us. If you are associating yourself with someone who has and continues to scam, meaning they promise services or products, collect the money, and does not deliver, then they're a scammer. And if you continue to work with them, do business with them, be on YouTube pages with them, then that makes you just as bad, if not worse than them. I'll repeat that for those that don't understand. If you have been accused of, or you are guilty of, collecting money for products or services and have not delivered on those products or services, then you're a scammer. And if there are those of us who know that there are people doing it, and there's proof that people are doing it, and we still choose to do business with them and deal with them, what does that say about our character? And if these said individuals are abusing or scamming their own people for a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000, what do you think they'll do for a couple of $100,000 or a couple of $1 million? I'll wait. Is this somebody that you want to unite with? Is that the type of person that you want to be involved with just so you can get your stuff? Because if that's the case, then you need to stay far away from me, because I don't operate like that. Now I'll do the vision. The chat is not broken. Hopefully they're reading the information that was put in those links so they can help their community. That's what I'm hoping. And hopefully for those that are looking to petition the United States to take land from our ancestors and give it to them, hopefully they're looking up some information that's going to prove what they're talking about is right. All they need to do is have one piece of proof, one entity where it's legal and it still works. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I've been asking for this for 6 months. I haven't seen it once. Nor has anybody disproven that the NFL is a sovereign entity. And I've dropped their constitution and bylaws in the chat as well, and no one has disproven that. Now it's 292 pages, and they may have to do some reading, but they haven't disproven that either. Since people say that nonprofits are traps and nonprofits put you in some type of negative situation. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we've been talking about and we've been dropping information on that no one has attempted to disprove yet. Nor have they tried to prove what they're saying. So I don't expect the chat to get moving when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, nor the last time.
No, I feel the same way. I mean, where is it? I mean, somebody has anything opposite of what we're saying? I mean, usually, you don't have to say anything, which is good too. You can keep it to yourself. But in this community of people wanting to prove somebody wrong on something, TMH, I haven't heard you being proved wrong yet.
Well, it ain't me that's been proven wrong. It's
information.
Yeah.
The information.
Yeah, it ain't me. It's
you providing the information.
Yeah.
Nobody has come to say, "Hey, TMH, you sir are wrong." I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah.
Where they at,
You and your information are wrong. You said where they at though. You hit them with the shmoney dance until they show up. You get some tired legs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the information that we speak about is out there, it's on the websites, it's in the back chats, it's in the chats, it's in the videos. I mean, it's out there, so there's plenty of information. Dude, the video says I'm waiting on someone to show when the alphabet boys are you.
Mm. Oh, and also on the Continental Assembly YouTube page, there's a video with it's very, very, very detailed on locating and finding your tribes and ancestors when they're not on rolls and records. It's probably about I want to say about 40 minutes long, I believe, but it also has the information on different tribes to contact in different areas. Those little tidbits are put out for the information so you can access it at any given time. But it does no good if you don't access it. So like I said, a lot of them have the websites, the phone numbers, mailing addresses of the places that you need to contact. Like we said earlier, a lot of the work has already been done for you. You just have to access it and use it. And that's on the Continental Assembly YouTube YouTube site.
And a question that I have that I would suggest that those that are in all chats that are on supporting all channels, the number one question that you may want to ask: what is it that you're teaching that can help my people right now, today? That's number one. Number two, if you're speaking about being indigenous, if you're speaking about being autochthonous, if you're speaking about being American Indian, a Native American, or speaking about, our lineage, why are you not talking about genealogy and tying back into those lineages? Those are two questions you may want to ask. If they don't have any answers, that should tell you everything you need to know. Because I haven't seen any proof that not tying back into your tribe will get you everything that you need. I know tying back into your tribe is not only a great start, but there are many tribes, both federally recognized and locally recognized, that are doing well. But there are even more that are not doing well, and they need our help. So why would I ask the government to take land for those tribes, from those tribes that are already struggling, and give the land to me so now I can create my own tribe. Doesn't that sound like what the colonizers did?
Yep, that's about right. That about right.
I'm going to repeat that question again. Why would I petition the United States government, corporation, or whatever you want to call it, to take land from my ancestors who are already struggling to survive, to take that land from them and give it to me so I can then form my own tribe?
Because they scared though.
If anybody that's promoting doing it can show how that's worthy and that's honoring your ancestors, I will wait and I will issue apologize on everybody's YouTube channel.
Bruh, we're gonna be here for a long time waiting on that. Got some Snickers?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time or the last time around. I've been wrong about a lot of things. So, I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done. I just don't see where it has been done.
I mean, you can drop a link in the chat and let us know. I mean, if it's been done and it worked out.
I just ordered that 5-year supply of Snickers. We ain't going nowhere for a while.
By that time, Bones, you can post the videos where it didn't work.
If they want, you get what I'm saying? Like I said, we got over 100 videos that shows that it doesn't work. But for us, it's really not about that. We're trying to get the information out there, let people know that there are resources that can be accessed and applied now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
But if that's what it takes. It's nothing. Like I said, we have over 100 approved. And we didn't state it before. The main dude that started all of it is Aryan racist. So, I mean, I don't know. You're going to use...
Follow what you want to follow.
Yeah, it's your choice. But you're going to use the colonizer's method to get away from the colonizer.
But aren't they saying that what we're using the colonizer's method, but even though the Constitution and the bylaws were taken from the Haudenosaunee?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the colonizer's stuff, right?
No.
They must have stole it fair and square, I guess. That's the rule that they're coming behind. They stole it fair and square.
They
So you get to use it. And it's theirs. That means it's theirs too. So anybody,
So help me understand this. It's okay to take an ideology from a racist organization who can't stand you and use it, that has been proven to put them in jail. But it's not okay to take an idea that your ancestors created that has been proven to work and still proves to work and use that for your betterment. That's not okay.
I think they think the colonizers are smarter than their ancestors.
Oh, you mean the racist colonizers?
Yeah, they're smarter than their ancestors.
Okay, just
You know.
checking.
That's what I believe. I mean, nobody saying anything. That has to be what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
Say what?
I mean, I would love to hear how that's applicable and how that's appropriate and how that's honoring your ancestors. I mean, oh yeah, don't forget to ask. How is calling yourself a chief honoring your ancestors, especially when you don't have a tribe, you've never been voted on, and things of that nature? So how is that possible?
Hold on, wait a minute. You mean like when you're like tribeless, like no tribe,
Yeah, no,
like not even like family members or nothing?
No.
But you can't call yourself that.
I mean,
I didn't know that.
well,
I'm not a card carrying
well,
Indian per se, not yet.
Well,
But
look at it this way. You can call yourself whatever you want to because of self-identification.
okay, all right.
I mean,
I see where this is
You
going.
can call yourself a pack of Hot Wheels if it'll make you happy. You know what I'm saying?
99 cents at the grocery store.
Don't be saying, and it's just my personal opinion. These are not the views of the Conscious Assembly. My personal opinion is, how are you going to say you honor your ancestors in the same voice? You're violating tribal law by calling yourself a chief. That's all I'm asking.
Can you say that one more time? There might be some people here that never heard that in that order before.
What did you say? Come again?
Yeah. Perdóname.
The question is, how are you going to say that you're honoring your ancestors when you're violating tribal law You're breaking the constitutions and the bylaws by calling yourself a chief. Now, if you want to be blatantly disrespectful, then that's fine. That's your choice. But my question is, how are you going to say you're honoring your ancestors by doing something that's disrespectful?
I'm gonna respect by disrespect. How that work? How that work?
I don't
They got a manual? Does that have a manual?
Yeah, do they have the going against the grain manual
Yeah.
specifically for this category?
Last time I remember going against the grain get you splinters. Ouch.
Yep, and no waves.
Woo!
Oh, I got another one.
Shh. They don't want to tell nobody.
Oh, am I supposed to ask that question? Oh, okay.
I think the question is, do they know? Does your tribe know what you're doing? Does your tribe know what you're doing out here?
Or if you are, or is it even more important one? I got this one. So this is a good one. If you are a card carrying Indian and you are working with, associating with, and doing business with, and on YouTube pages with scammers, does your tribe know? How does the council feel about that?
I heard crickets.
David Core said they messing with the live. Yeah,
Mic check. Make sure we all good. He said we cut out a couple times.
Yeah, my feed is up under attack. That's okay. As long as they think they're getting away with it, they'll continue.
Yeah. Well,
my lawyers are on it. Don't worry about it.
TMA should think you're playing.
I'm good.
I know, right? I think that makes it a little bit more fun, right? I think I'm playing.
Because when a discovery is done, and they discover that you are not an entity, and you are messing with
an entity,
everybody that's associated with you will be investigated, and they can be held liable. Don't believe me. Do the research. So continue to mess with a channel that is a 501c. Go ahead, I dare you. I double dog dare you. Matter of fact, I trap a dog dare you.
Please
believe. Please.
We need some entertainment this summer.
Continue to do it. Just because ain't nobody come knocking on your door, don't mean they won't.
Leave it alone.
No, they ain't got to. Keep coming. Ain't nobody come knocking on my door yet either.
Damn, they gave y'all the address.
My address is public.
I know it is, but I'm just saying.
It's been public since day one.
Come on, Cletus. Come on.
I'm just talking about for a conversation. I'm not talking about for a confrontation.
I hear you.
I'm about speaking to a person face to face, man to man, man to woman, however you want to do it. I'm not about this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Icon fake stuff. I'm used to talking to people, not
actual
icons.
people.
Yeah, real people. You know, sitting across the table from somebody, and if you got a problem with me, saying something to me. I mean, but apparently people don't do that no more. They hide behind stuff because they think they're safe.
Keyboards and screens.
Keyboards and screens.
Plastic and glass will keep you safe, I guess, right?
I mean, that's what they think.
People get nothing. But they known though.
And they own though. I guess they own. Man.
That's why we say again, it's time for solutions. Solutions are here. It's time to get real. It's time to start cleaning up our community. It's time for us to take accountability of what we allow to display us, what we allow ourselves to give our time to that represents the worst of us. When there's information and resources to be accessed, that should be 1, 2, and 3 objectives. Tying back in, knowing yourself, tying back into your tribe, tying back into the land, accessing these resources. Time is now. We're going to keep telling you the time is now. I keep playing. Everybody else going to keep building up around you. You're going to find yourself completely locked out. And who fault that's going to be? No more pointing fingers. We all have a part to play. We all have a responsibility. Sweep not your neighbor's porch until yours is swept. Use the information. Use your time wisely to apply this information. I can't say it enough. What's the sense of wanting to be known as the first or the smartest if you can't apply it? If it doesn't help no one in their daily life? Let's stop being afraid, keeping our heads tucked in. Let's stop only being brave, proud Indians when we online behind icons and screen names. Let's stop being proud warriors when it comes time to shout out colorful metaphors and disrespect. But when it's time to actually get our hand healed, we got excuses. Let's stop sitting here saying how we hold our women prideful and respect their leadership, but at the same time condone the disrespect of our sisters on a daily basis. If we're gonna sit here and say that we are the American Indians, then let's be the American Indians. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when the cameras is on. No, it's when you go back into your own private space, that's where it matters the most. We can't keep screaming for change, doing the same things. That's insanity. We got to be willing to put some of these things down. We have to be willing to be like, if that means I have to cut this out for 7 generations to be better, then I'm going to cut it out. No one can tell you what it is that you need to put down to sacrifice to change. That's for you to find out. But we all can give a little bit more. We all can care a little bit more. We all could lead a little bit more. Let's not allow the distractions, the drama, the foolish entertainment to wash this away. Because if it happens, who's responsible? or when our children ask, we're gonna point fingers. That we dwell in a time where information is at a fingertip. The access is at a fingertip. When they ask us, why didn't we ask? What are you gonna say? I. I didn't want to let go a little bit of partying. I didn't want to let go some of these European luxuries just for a minute. I didn't want to take some of my time that I worked in this system that I say I hate so much to reinvest back in me, or my children, or my community, to make sure the next generation doesn't have to. Everything isn't always about finance. Some of us have skill sets that can be taught to the next generation. Some of us, just a helping word. When you see your brother or sisters down, come on, we all know how hard it is in this society. Regardless if we agree with each other or not, we all know the burden of wearing that on our backs, because we all have. So isn't it time for us to stop doing it to each other? Those of you who say you care, say it by your actions. If you really are proud and want to wear this, you should never be ashamed. Embrace that we are different. Embrace that we want to rise above this foolishness. In order to make change, yes, there must come sacrifice, but not any sacrifice, the right ones. So if we must sacrifice our time to tear apart this information on how to start fixing home in our communities, then let's do it. I say again, the internet should be about to burn up, because this information is flowing. The phone line should be on fire. Or do we just want to talk about solutions rather than doing them?
I don't. I'm ready to work. We actually working.
Let's stop walking away. Let's stop turning our backs. Let's face the wrongs that were done. Let's stop crying about it. Because the whole time while we're whining, guess what? Them cousins of ours, they're taking advantage. And yes, I say cousins. Because if you're serious about this work and doing genealogy,
cousins was to them.
You will find out that some of these people tie right back into your own tribes. So yes, some of our cousins.
Who you kicking out again?
Whether we like it or not. They showed up when the roll was called. We the ones sitting down here pouting lips on the floor.
Man.
See, I don't know how to sugarcoat people. We got to face some hard truths. We've been slacking for too long. That's all of us, including myself. We all can push and give a little bit more. We have a choice to make. Stand up and let's start rewriting our story. Or stop complaining about his.
So what I'm about to put in the chat is something that I think everybody needs to read, and it stems from the Patriot Act, and it talks about Electronic Privacy Information Center. So I'm gonna read a little bit to you for those that think that they're separate from the government. The Electronic Privacy Information Center is an independent, nonprofit research center in Washington, D.C. EPIC's mission is to focus public attention on emergency privacy and related human rights issues. EPIC works to protect privacy, freedom, and expression and democratic values, and to promote the public voice in decisions concerning the future of the Internet. EPIC pursues a wide range of civil liberties and consumer protection and human rights issues, has pursued several successful consumer privacy complaints with the U.S. Federal Trade Commission concerning Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, rolled out on Google Buzz, Microsoft, ChoicePoint, and many others. Now, everybody knows that when it comes to information, the government is always going to be listening. It's always going to be watching. Even when somebody's website's attacked. And when you attack a nonprofit website, you're being under surveillance. And it's required by law that if you are being harassed, you're supposed to snitch or tell. I'm just saying. But for those of you who claim you know the law, please break down the Patriot Act to your people so they understand exactly what they're doing when you start teaching this sovereignty and pulling away stuff. Because I really would like to hear that. Patriot Act, look it up. I relinquish the mic.
Or just stop playing games online. I mean,
But they real though. Like we said, we're not here to give you the feel-good message that everything is sunshine and sprinkles. No. We're here to get down to the hardcore truth of the matter, to find out what we must do to fix our ancestors' wrong to move forward. And make no mistake about it, yes, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. A lot of things we read personally don't like. But the first step is accepting it to move forward. You can't let it hold you down and weigh you down, because now you're giving something outside of yourself power over you. It's time for you to take that power back. It's time to stop letting things outside of yourself control you, dictate what you like and don't like. It's time for us to admit that we suffer from a colonized mind, a colonized view. Because until we start being honest with ourselves, we can't start fixing these situations that's wrong with us.
And Indigenous Intelligence brought up a very good point. He says, appreciate y'all doing it the right way. People want to run around the fire, but nobody want to go through the fire to get to the other side. It'll take more than a day to fix our predicament. Exactly, because we didn't get in this predicament in a day. It took hundreds of years to be in this predicament. And this is a predicament that we help place ourselves in. So potentially, Hopefully it doesn't, but it could take hundreds of years to get ourselves out. And if you're not willing to go through that, then you might as well go find an empty stadium and take several seats. I'm sorry, because this is gonna require work. And being on YouTube and just running your mouth is not gonna get it done. I'm sorry. Those are cold hard facts. And like I said, if you want to have a conversation about it, you can either call me or you can come see me.
It's accepting and understanding the possibility that the work that we do today, we might not get to see it fulfilled. But that shouldn't matter. It's the knowing to set the spark in motion that 7 generations will be better for it. Somebody gave for us to be here right now, at this moment, on this day. Somebody resisted a little bit longer for us to even be having this conversation. Let's not waste this opportunity. Let's not waste our time. Every generation gets a chance. What are we gonna do with ours? There's only so many elders of ours left. Pretty soon, we're gonna be in the class of the elders. So while we still have a little bit of youth and the knowledge and the ability to get something done for the next generation, what are we gonna do? Because time is 1,000,000 and we're gonna let time catch up, sit down and make that excuse, oh, we shoulda, we coulda, or if. Our time is now. How are we gonna be the elders to guide if we're not even building a structure, a system, mechanisms to guide? Where are we gonna guide them to? Nowhere? The ones that came before us, they opened the door. Now we know about the door. Now we're in place. A lot of us represent our communities. Some of us own businesses. We are in place. It is our time. The light is on us in history. It's our chapter now, our story now. We gonna write it or we gonna let somebody else write it? If we all give a little bit more, nobody has to give a lot. If we all can give a little bit more, nobody has to give a lot. So on that note today, let's use today and rejoice because we did have a rising. And take it amongst ourselves to let who we are radiate beyond a YouTube stream. Radiate beyond our household, but everywhere we go. Let's start being the examples for all the negative images that have been shown through the years. That is not us. That we are misrepresented. Let's take this weekend to spend time when people get together to talk about genealogy, to spark the conversations, or even to talk to some elder loved ones to get more information. Take the time out to use the resources. Even take more time out to talk amongst each other in local areas to see what things you can get going on locally for the people around your area. Let's don't make the mistake on waiting somebody to do everything for us. We all have a skill set to lead. So let's take it among ourselves today to use this time to start changing this narrative.
Grand Rising Original Tiller, Grand Rising Smoking Big '06. Original Tiller, you was mentioning that you needed some help with your genealogy. Want to ask you if you actually went to autonomousassembly.com and checked out the 50 free sites that can help you. If you have done so, let us know how far you've gotten. Drop your email into the chat, and we can reach out to you to see if we can help you get started. Hopefully you've started with what you know with your parents, grandparents, have birth certificates, death certificates. Also, hopefully you've gotten as far back as at least the 1900s or the mid 1800s, and can give us the county that your ancestors were in. If not, if you need some help on doing that, we can help you. The more work that you have done, the easier it will be for us to help you. If all you have is the name of your parents, yeah, you may have to do a little bit more work. So just let us know where you're at. We'll do everything we can. We're not going to be able to do it for you, but we can show you where you can go. We'll assist you with all we can. So.
Yep. I posted our email address in the back in the chat right now. So just email us. Let us know who you are in the email, and we can go from there. But as TMH said, hopefully you have started. That goes for everybody. Hopefully you've started if you need our help. Some of us are still doing our genealogy, so we can't sit here and do y'all's genealogy and our genealogy at the same time. We're not professional genealogists. We are just providing some resources.
So is there anything that what we like to say before we close out? You got anything you want to share? No, Salah.
I'm about to share it in the chat. But y'all have we peacing out? We peacing.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we gotta do work. We gotta do work.
Yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed the information today. I hope y'all have a grand weekend if you're celebrating holidays and things like that. But yeah, I'm gonna post everything in the chat that you need to know. Peace, y'all.
The one thing.
Until the next show. Oh.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say is let's get these scammers out of our communities, man. For real. Let's stop dealing with people that don't do any good for our people. Let's stop associating with them, or at least put them in a situation to where they have to correct themselves. Because everybody can correct the situation. Bring it to their attention that they should be doing it, and then demand that they stop. And if they don't stop, then they gotta go. Because at the end of the day, if you're continuing to be involved with these individuals that are scamming, and you're not paying attention to the Patriot Act, and you think you know the law, they can end up getting you hemmed up. The laws will only become more stricter on the internet because people are allowed to hide behind icons, and they are allowed to hide behind masking servers and servers that can hide their identity, and they're not pingable. Yeah, I know about that stuff. I was in IT for over 30 years. So just because I know about it and I don't say anything, don't think that the government don't know about it. So what you think you're getting away with, you're really not getting away with. And if people are being affiliated with you, and you are affiliated with those individuals, or you're affiliated with somebody that does that, and you're still associated with them, and you're a part of a tribe, that's not going to look good for you nor your tribe. That's not going to look good for you nor your organization. So I'm just saying, let's get the scammers out of our community, and that way we can move forward. That's all I got to say.
On that note, it's always fun when we get together with the relatives. Until the next Rising Show, enjoy your weekend. Peace.